Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Beatriz Mourad.
Hello.
Today, Beatriz and I are talking about the 2017-2018 Oscar Best Picture nominees. Now, this is not an animation topic, which is what we normally cover here at the Overly Animated Podcast. Find us at overlyanimated.com for our normal content, but this year we're going to be trying a few non-animation off-topic discussions, somewhat tangentially related, probably types of media, different types other than animation. But today it is the Oscar nominations came out on Tuesday. Beatriz and I have seen all 9 Best Picture nominees, and we'll be walking you through each one. If you look in the podcast description, I'll have timestamps for when each of our discussion starts. To start out, we're going to talk about the category as a whole. We're going to talk about snubs, what we thought was good nominations, and then we'll get into each movie, briefly giving our thoughts on them. We can also in the beginning talk about who will win this category. If you know nothing about any of these movies, this could be a good introductory podcast because Beatriz and I will not be getting into specific spoilers, for the movie, Beatriz. But we'll especially not be getting into any spoilers in the first section. Before we get into the specific movies, we'll have a zero spoiler section, and then once we get into the individual movies, we'll have a only vague spoilers, like I like the end of the movie. Some people don't want to hear that. I'll let you know when each of those starts, but if you haven't seen any of them, this could be good. Also, if you've seen all of them, then you'll have opinions on all of them, see which ones you agree with and disagree with on us. So Oscar Best Picture nominees. Like I said, overlyanimated.com for all of our normal stuff. But yeah, the Oscar nominees this year, Beatriz, were Call Me By Your Name, Darkest Hour, Dunkirk, Get Out, Lady Bird, Phantom Thread, The Post, Shape of Water, and 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. So you have seen all of these. I've seen all of these. What do you think of this group of movies? Do you think this is a strong grouping of Best Picture nominees? And was 2017 a strong year in film?
Yes, I think outside of the films produced this year, it's not this year, this past year, it was a rough year. But the one silver lining is that we had a really good bunch of movies come out, and it was just absolutely a great year for film. And this is a category that it has so many different types of movies and so many just distinct stories and styles that just really shows the strengths of this past year. And just it's a very strong group, I think. And I still don't know if there's a clear winner. I don't know if there isn't one particular film or two films that are racing for the Oscar trophy. Like I could still see.
Yeah.
Some of these films.
We'll talk about what could win. But I feel like that's a completely separate thing. Is what is this 6,000 person Academy going to actually do versus like what do we actually think of the movies? That's completely separate here. And yeah. So you think it's a strong year? I agree, and I caution against people who say that the Oscars are like valueless and do the same thing every time. To a certain extent, all award shows have no value, right? Like they're just there. I think the Oscars are the best award show in that they actually do generally award the best in film of the year. So like there's more reason to trust it, but also these movies are much different than what the Oscars were doing 10 years ago. The fact that Get Out is a Best Picture nominee is like stunning, and it's kind of accepted because we've known it's going to have been happening for a long time. It's had a lot of support, but Get Out is a horror movie that comments on race. Like this is not something that the Academy would typically nominate, and it's just really great that it is nominated. There's also half of these movies at least have female leads.
Yeah.
That's a big thing that stood out to me from 2017 is a lot of the top contenders are female-led films. Despite the Oscars trending progressively, I think that this is something that's lagged behind in previous years, but this year, a lot, if not most of these movies have female leads, and the ones that could win generally do have female leads too. Like the Oscar Best Picture winner probably will have a main character that's female this year. And, yeah, I think it's strong. maybe compared to last year, I think that there's, I don't know, maybe the top is, I don't know if there's standouts last year like La La Land and Moonlight were. Like, I feel like maybe I'd take those two movies over all of these, but there's just a lot of quality movies in these 9.
Yeah, I will say that La La Land, Moonlight, and Arrival, for me, are superior to all these movies. But even then, like, these are fantastic movies, and there's a variety in them, which is just so refreshing to see. It's that because, that there's usually that term, Oscar bait, where if a movie checks certain boxes, it's going to be nominated for Best Picture. A lot of people like to make that argument. Well, this is an example of that not being the case. There's a wide variety, and it just shows how great of a year it was for film.
Yeah, I agree on Arrival. That was my favorite movie last year, but a lot of people disagree. A lot of people disagree and think that's like a legitimate opinion, so I don't want to get into that. There's only 2 of these 9 movies could remotely be considered Oscar bait, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The Post and Darkest Hour. And I don't think The Post is meant to be Oscar bait. It was specifically pushed through in production very fast because it's trying to comment on Trump. Like, it's not made to be Oscar bait. It's made to
comment.
to comment on the current political situation. I also don't think Darkest Hour is meant to be Oscar bait, but Darkest Hour is the type of movie that gets nominated for Best Picture. Like 10 years ago, it'd be 5 Darkest Hours.
Yeah. Yes.
So, okay. But yeah, Oscar bait's not really as much of a thing as we think. So, we've also seen a lot of movies beyond these, especially you've probably seen a lot more movies than me in 2017. What stands out to you as notable snubs from this category? What should have been here that's not?
The Florida Project. The Florida Project needed to be on this list. That is my favorite film of the year. It's everything that you want in a great film, and it had buzz, but for instance, The Darkest Hour doesn't stand a chance against Florida Project. But for some reason, it didn't make the cut. And I think out of all the films, Darkest Hour is the one that I just really don't understand why it was nominated, because it wasn't getting the Best Picture buzz. And the Florida Project was, and that was a really big missed opportunity. I know that Wonder Woman wasn't ever really gonna be nominated, but it would have been really nice given how it took so long for that film to get made. Not just because like the 75 years in the making, it's more just also, it's been Joss Whedon tried to make a Wonder Woman movie. Patty Jenkins, like, it was 10 years since her last film. Like, that would have been a really great Best Picture nom, just because from the producing standpoint, it was such a journey, and it's such a crucial cultural film that I could have seen it be nominated for Best Picture and didn't get it. I'm trying to think, because let
me give you some movies other than, I agree on Florida Project. We'll talk about it more in a second. Mudbound is one that really stands out to me. I did finally see Mudbound, and that is,
Okja.
Okja. I haven't seen Okja.
Really great.
Yeah, I don't think that got any nominations.
No, it didn't get any, but it was, I personally prefer Okja to Mudbound. I think Okja is like the best Netflix film to come out this year. Okay. I mean, this past year, but Mudbound definitely deserved some love.
Let's talk about Mudbound for a second, because Mudbound is a type of movie that gets nominated for an Oscar, and it's really depressing that it didn't. It seems like it missed because people in the movie industry hate Netflix. And they just think that Netflix doesn't release movies in theaters. So that sucks that this movie, which is, directed by a gay black woman, it doesn't get in, which has like a largely female crew. First, female cinematographer nominated did get nominated for this movie, but, Mudbound's really good. The ending of the movie just walloped me. And, I think that that's kind of inexplicable, Mudbound not getting nominated, because it's not that it's like the Florida Project. You get that this wouldn't resonate with a large 6,000. It's a very specific movie that it wouldn't resonate with a large group of people. Mudbound's like a historical drama. Like this is exactly what should get in. And, this is just stupid Academy politics. So
and not just that, but I feel also that because last year Manchester by the Sea won a couple of awards and that was an Amazon film. And Amazon again is another big streamer. I think the difference is that Netflix just has not figured out how to do Oscar politics, whereas Amazon did. It just doesn't know how to do a proper Oscar campaign. It keeps failing. And in order for it to get nominated, there is a campaign that must be done. And I think Netflix just hasn't really cracked that formula yet. And I mean, it's so sad because a lot of the films that were nominated for Oscars that kind of deal with similar issues weren't directed by a Black person or a Black woman. And the reason why Mudbound is so powerful is because it does bring this perspective and there's this voice to it and the certain things that it does in the film that I guess that for some reason no one else has done before. And this film just unapologetically does so. And I think that's purely because this is directed by someone who is impacted by racism and the weights of the past. And it's just really upsetting that it wasn't nominated. It truly did deserve it. And I mean, it's just, it just sucks. It really sucks.
Yeah. I think Amazon releases in theaters and Netflix doesn't. I think that's the Academy bias, but also Netflix is probably not good at campaigning. Compare how Mudbound comments on race versus how Three Billboards does. And, it's kind of depressing the state of affairs. Star Wars Last Jedi, that's a movie we both really love.
Yeah.
It's not like this was ever going to get nominated, but I do have it in my top 10 films of the year. I think it was genuinely really brilliant. I think it's the best Star Wars movie. We could get into that more maybe in a separate podcast, but, I really love Baby Driver.
That one, it got best editing, I think.
Yeah, it got editing and sound. Yeah. So it got some stuff. Coco. Give me Coco over Darkest Hour. That
any day.
Yeah. So that would have been great. And one that's actually a snub is The Big Sick. This movie did just miss, and I really love The Big Sick.
Yeah, I mean, and also it kind of just once again is another reminder of just comedy, for instance, not being taken as seriously. I don't think Tiffany Haddish was nominated for Best Supporting, and her performance was like everyone thought like she needs to get nominated. She was incredible in it, and she wasn't. So it's one of those things where the Academy is still very much obsessed with drama. And I think ever since, what was the last animated film to get nominated for Best Picture? Yeah. Because after that was
Toy Story 3 and
Toy Story. Yeah. They were just like, no, we can't have them in our Best Picture. Something went down and it's not okay. Like Coco absolutely would have fit the Best Picture nominee.
I think a Pixar movie still could get in. I think you watch Incredibles 2 next year, it's possible, but Coco deserves that type of buzz, and it wasn't getting it. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, Florida Project. Circling back to that, Florida Project is my number one movie of 2017. Is it yours as well?
Yep, it's mine.
And it was the number one critics movie of 2017. But this is the type of movie that's like a critic darling and is not necessarily going to resonate with the Academy. I'm sure it just missed. It's not like it's not like Darkest Hour took its spot, because that's not really how it works. There could have been 10 and there weren't. So it just didn't hit a threshold. You need a 5% first place vote threshold. It's an interesting system. And Florida Project's the type of movie you'd expect to have passionate support like us, having it as their number one. I would have put it number one on my ballot. I don't know why it didn't really get there, but you need to see the Florida Project. It is the movie that stuck with me for the longest time after watching it this year. It is the most impactful. It has the most to say about the world in the most interesting way. It is like shot the most interesting way, told in the most interesting perspective. I think it's genuinely really incredible. Like if Florida Project was included, then I could genuinely say this Oscar, Best Picture nominee slate is really representative of the best movies of the year. Like I really like Mudbound to be nominated too, but like if Florida Project's there, we can feel fine about it. We can move on. But it's almost like all invalid because the best movie of the year is not even there.
Yeah. That's really like, that's what really hurts, is the fact that here is the definitive, like, I mean, definitive is a strong word, but seriously, this is the definitive best movie of the year. And nowhere to be seen. I think the only thing it was nominated for was Best Supporting Actor, I think, which is ludicrous. You know, it's yes. And the thing, and William Dafoe, I really hope wins it because he's the only one representing this incredible film. And I remember when I was younger, I would do this too, where you have people go, oh, what were the best movies of a random year? I'm going to check out the ones who won. And then they don't check out any other film. And if they do check out the nominees, maybe the fact that the best film of the year isn't even nominated is just so ludicrous. And it really hurts to see that list and not have that there.
Yeah. Depressing that it's not going to get more exposure now. Yeah, Defoe's great in it. He might not even win that category. That sucks. Really one of my biggest, just as much as the film itself, Sean Baker not getting a director nomination to me. He's by far the best director of the year for me. This is, such an intricately directed movie and, that was like a requirement. I'm fine with how the director category ended up, but, that's bad. Seriously, see Florida Project. It comments on poverty and economic inequality like potentially no other piece of media in the history of the world has.
Yeah.
Like that's that big of praise for me. Okay. So I was looking forward to potentially talking about it as one of these 9 movies, but no. Okay. But first we got to talk about, who's going to win this category. Now, like I said before, who's going to win an Oscar is completely separate from what is actually the best. If you see an Oscar prognosticator saying these are the movies that could win, they're not saying they endorse those movies. Like it's just trying to predict the habits of people. But I kind of follow this and, there's no, the first thing is there's no clear, runaway winner this year, which is exciting. This category could go to one of a few films. It seems like the 2 most likely are, 3 Billboards, outside Ebbing, Missouri and Shape of Water.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe Get Out or Lady Bird as like dark horses.
And then Get Out and Lady Bird also do have a genuine chance. The thing you'll see the most is that, Shape of Water, 3 Billboards are the 2 front runners. 3 Billboards because it's won a lot of the precursor prizes, Shape of Water because it got the most nominations and won the Producers Guild, which is the most important precursor. The reality is this, preferential ballot is very unpredictable. Last year, Moonlight won and no one expected that.
In the most unexpected way it won.
Right, yeah. But, like, the way it won, like, takes away from the fact that it did win. And, basically what the preferential ballot system rewards is, 100% consensus on a movie being good versus, like pocket appeals. Like last year we saw backlash against La La Land and, that probably resulted in a lot of people ranking it last on their ballots, which is enough to give it to Moonlight. So this year the backlash movie is 3 Billboards. But now it's maybe not perceived as the front runner because Shape of Water got the most nominations. So will the backlash be big enough to have it be enough people ranking it lower? So basically it's just rewards consensus movies. That's why Lady Bird and Get Out could also win because everyone agrees that they're great. Personally, I think Lady Bird has just as much of a chance as 3 Billboards. Like I think Shape of Water is probably most likely to win. And then you got, 3 Billboards and Lady Bird and Get Out also could win, although I'm skeptical that all those white people will have that movie. But Moonlight, it's possible. Like,
maybe. I mean, after Moonlight, who knows? But yeah, when it comes to these type of things, I side more on the cynical. So I think they are going to give it a 3 Billboards. I hope not, but I really do think that's the one that's going to take it. But Shape of Water is also, I could also see that happening. I wouldn't mind Shape of Water winning it. I would prefer Shape of Water winning it over 3 Billboards, but perhaps maybe the backlash is what would keep 3 Billboards from it, but I don't know if there's going to be enough time versus does it have a big enough backlash? Because sometimes a backlash on, say, for instance, Twitter likes to think it resonates with everybody, but maybe it won't, Maybe it's just something that's unique to Twitter.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about the backlash more when we get to that movie. One thing about time, we have a lot of time this year because the Winter Olympics pushed the Oscars back 2 weeks, so there's over a month left to vote. There's an eternity for them to vote on this, and I do think I would say bet against Three Billboards. That's my advice. I really think Shape of Water or Lady Bird is going to win. I'm out of those four movies. Also, Dunkirk is like a very slim outside shot.
Yeah.
Out of those four movies, I'm personally rooting for Lady Bird the most out of those. I also would love a Get Out win and would also be happy with a Shape of Water win. Basically, I'm rooting against Three Billboards.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I'm rooting for The Shape of Water. Or no, sorry, I'm rooting for Get Out, but I know that, but if I were just based on which one I want, because Get Out for me is the second best film of the year. So I want Get Out to win. The one I think is going to win, maybe Shape of Water, hopefully.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it probably is the best chance, but I do think Lady Bird really could win. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens. There's a lot to evolve between now when we're recording this pretty close to nominations and, when the balloting closes. Okay, there you go. Ignoring who's going to win, we're going to go through each movie, talk about, give a brief introduction and talk about our opinions of each of these movies. We're going to go in alphabetical order, and one movie we haven't talked about at all yet because it's not going to win this category is, Call Me By Your Name, but it did get a nomination, so kudos to the Academy for that.
Wouldn't it have been amazing if it did, though? And then you had Moonlight, then Call Me By Your Name. Like, just make it a thing where only the gay movies win. Yeah. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. You'll see some, get ready for the insider takes on Call Me By Your Name. We did that movie last year. Now we're going to do something like, oh my God. You get ready for a lot of that. But, Call Me By Your Name is a romance, drama, coming of age movie, basically like a first romance fantasy movie. It's not like fantasy, but but directed by, Luca Guadagnino. It's nominated for, Best Actor, Timothée Chalamet, the lead, Best Screenplay, Best Original Song, Mystery of Love, and, also for Best Picture. I also would have loved to see Luca get a Best Director nomination. That category was very crowded though.
Yeah, that is true. Like, honestly, I'm fine with the Best Picture and Best Actor. I would have been more upset with Timothée Chalamet not getting nominated than the director, than Luca getting nominated.
What's impressive is Timothée Chalamet was never going to miss. In fact, he's the only one that could win over Gary Oldman in Best Actor. But we'll have more on that at the end. Like, he's genuinely like he's one of the top two.
Yeah.
So remembering that we're not going to get into, and this is the part where we're going to get into vague spoilers, by the way, so, tune out now if you don't want us to say things like, I love the end of this movie, which we're going to say for this movie. So it's, but we're not going to get into specific spoilers. Okay, Beatriz, what did you think of Call Me By Your Name?
I mean, this movie's a little complicated for me because the first time I watched it, I even wrote something for class. Because there was this like really, after seeing it, me and my brother had like an argument about it a little bit because I really didn't like how they treated a specific character. And I wrote a piece about it. And in order to write the piece, I had to rewatch it again. And it was in the second viewing that I kind of was like, just let it go and just watch the movie for what it is. And I did. And I think it's a beautiful movie. It's a romance novel meets a GQ photo shoot. It's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. You need to watch it more than once to like really, really see what was created. This kind of, this nuance, this lovely little story about love and how it's powerful and how it can just sweep you away. And yes, it can be heartbreaking, but that's okay. And that should be embraced even. So, it's a beautiful movie. It's really well made. I still think that there are certain things that I disagree with in the movie that I would have tweaked, but it's beautiful. It really is. And it's a celebration of love, which is something that even now we still need a reminder of.
Yeah, celebration of love, celebration of queer love. Like, I love Call Me By Your Name. It's my second favorite movie of the year, right behind Florida Project. So in theory, I should be rooting for this one to win, but it doesn't really have a realistic chance. The thing I love about Call Me By Your Name versus typical, queer movies you see, like prestige movies, made by Hollywood, not Moonlight, because Moonlight was exceptional.
Moonlight wasn't made by Hollywood.
Right. It was kind of an indie movie, which is incredible. And so is this one to a certain extent. But I love that this movie is just not caught up in nonsense drama. Like, there's not a lot of drama here, and it's just like two guys in love, and that's just the whole movie. And that's so refreshing to me. I really like that versus, what was the female movie from a few years ago?
Carol?
Carol, yeah. I didn't love Carol as much because I felt like there was a lot of forced straight drama in that movie. And like that took away from the great gay moments. And like there's none of that in Call Me by Your Name. So give me this movie over Carol by a lot. Now we don't need to talk about Carol though. But like that's the thing I love about Call Me by Your Name is every gay coming of age movie story that you see is like they have to deal with societal ramifications. And that's like all it is. And that is a component of this movie, but it's like a minor component. And it's really just first love and a presentation of that. And it's really beautiful, beautifully shot. The ending is incredible. It really comes together at the end. There's like two scenes that just really resonate. And yeah, so I really love Call Me by Your Name. I do have a specific social problem with the movie in terms of like the two characters are pretty far apart in age. And, that's kind of, the movie kind of talks about it and then doesn't really do anything with it. So I don't know, but
speaking on that though, like Armie Hammer looks so old, but his character isn't as old as he looks.
Right. Apparently he's supposed to be 24 in the movie, but he's clearly not 24.
That's the only thing. That's why it's like, that's more of a problem with casting. Maybe if they cast someone younger, maybe. Perhaps, or at least it looks younger, not necessarily.
Regardless of if he's 24, the other guy's still 17. So it still needs to deal with that, and it does comment on it. So, but you know, it doesn't comment that much. And I don't know. I'm still regardless. I'm really in love with this movie. I'm really happy that they nominated it.
Yeah, we should call you Call Me by Your Name, and they should call Me by Your Name. Dylan. Boom.
Does that, I don't know if that made any sense, but okay.
No, like, Call Me by Your Name. So it's like you love the movie. So now you're called what the movie's called. I never mind.
Also insert joke about the animated movie, Your Name.
Yeah.
How about that? Yeah. Michael Stuhlbarg should have been, I don't know. I didn't get his last name right. Should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor. That was a bad one.
And he had a great year. He's
in three of these movies. Yeah. That were nominated for Best Picture.
They need to make a joke about that at like, Jimmy Kimmel needs to joke about how he's just not here.
We'll see what table he's sitting at, right? Okay. Let's talk about Darkest Hour. Historical drama, directed by Joe Wright about, Winston Churchill and, his like ascent into, Prime Minister and, how he deals with the incoming threat of Hitler. It stars, Gary Oldman. He's nominated for Best Actor. It's got 6 nominations. Okay. Including, Best Film, Best Actor, probably technical roles, like cinematography and stuff, which I think this is a gorgeously shot movie. But anyway, Beatriz, what did you think of Darkest Hour?
This is one of 2, maybe possibly 3, but really 2 films that I don't understand why they're in this category. And especially as someone who's seen The Crown and has spent like 10 hours with a specific Churchill, and it's not fair to compare 10 hours to 2 hours or 1 hour 40. I'm not 100% sure what the runtime is, but there was just something in John Lithgow's performance as Churchill that I just didn't find in Gary Oldman's portrayal of Churchill, and just overall, like, it just felt very. It'd be interesting if I had seen this movie before Dunkirk, because this movie is essentially also a movie about Dunkirk, only from the point of view of Churchill and how he's dealing with it. And it's just kind of really snaps into focus this, just how the best way to describe it is there's a scene in Wonder Woman, and this is going to make sense, but there's a scene in Wonder Woman. If you haven't seen that movie, like, where have you been? But, there's a scene there where she yells at a general being like, you should be out there with the soldiers. Like, the generals in my home would be out there fighting alongside the soldiers and dying with them. And that scene in that movie perfectly encapsulates why I didn't really connect with Darkest Hour where I did with Dunkirk, in that it was this constant reminder of, here is this figurehead, this leader who isn't seeing the fight. And I understand, I don't want Churchill in the war because, like, he'd be more of a drag than anything else. Like, he can't run or anything, you know, it's fine. But, it did, like, stand out for me in that sense. And I just feel his character wasn't explored as much. His character wasn't explored as much as he should have been. There were other portrayals of Churchill that have explored him in a way that he deserves. I think the best person of this film is the actress who played his wife. She was the one who brought energy into the screen. Every time she was on screen, I was all for it. And I also don't understand why they always have to do, like, oh, we're going to do a famous figure. We're going to give them a female secretary that's going to be inspired by them. Like, I just don't need that cliche in this story. And, yeah, it's a good movie. It's not in the caliber of most of these movies.
Okay. So at least you thought it was good.
It was okay, but there's so many better films and there's so many better Churchill stories.
Okay. Yeah, it was a surprise that this got nominated for Best Picture. Like, it was possible, but this wasn't that much on people's radars. This shows that the Academy can still make traditional choices.
Yeah.
I guess I'll defend Darkest Hour. I liked it more than you. I did like this movie. This isn't my least favorite, I think, out of these 9. We'll get to it, but, I think it's a good movie. It's solid. There's no moments that really resonates with me like a lot of these others have. Like, there's no, like, huge emotional moment, although at the end, like, he's giving speeches and that's really great. But I think the performance is excellent. I'm really rooting against Gary Oldman in Best Actor. It's fruitless, but it is a great performance. The criticism, I don't know that, I'm not that much of a Churchill expert. The criticism I've heard is that the movie doesn't do as good of a job portraying him as a man of the people. There's one scene in this movie where he is, and it's
rushed
the
best scene. But.
Yeah. I think it's a good movie. I don't think, like, this getting the 9th slot in Best Picture, I don't think that's an atrocity. Like, that's fine. I think it's a good movie. It's really solidly made. It's gorgeously shot. It is a great lead performance. So I have no issues with Darkest Hour getting 9th slot. It's more just movies like Florida Project and Mudbound missing, which is kind of an independent event in how the voting works.
Yeah.
It's just unexciting. It's
a safe movie. It's a very safe movie.
I feel like Joe Wright could have done a lot with this that wasn't done. It feels very traditional.
And it for some reason, I don't know when they shot this movie, so it'd be unfair to say, but not really, because even in Europe, they're having this far right movement happening right now. So I feel like they could have done a lot more commentating on it, and it just felt very safe. It didn't really say anything that could have resonated with our current climate.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know what the message from this movie is. There's not really one. Like, the Post at least is trying to say a lot of things.
Yeah. For better or worse, it's really trying to sell us some message.
Yeah. Okay, so we're tepid on Darkest Hour, but it's fine. Okay, let's talk Dunkirk is our next one here, which is directed by Christopher Nolan. This is one of the ones you're more likely to have seen, listeners. Came out during the summer, kind of a war epic movie. It takes place on, like, desynchronized timelines. That's kind of the gimmick to it. And finally got Christopher Nolan a Best Director nomination. So I thought that was really wonderful. Anyway, Beatriz, what do you think of Dunkirk?
I think he deserves it. I think this is him at his best. I really do. He finally gave us a film that shows restraint from him, because usually his films are 2.5 hours plus long. And finally we get a film from him that's like 2 hours, and it's so good. It's so tight. It's from a technical perspective, from the editing to the sound to the cinematography. I just think this was a fantastic movie, and it shows the command he has in his craft, in that he's very confident in the stories he tells and the way he tells them. Even though I'm not rooting for him for Best Director, I wouldn't be mad if he won Best Director. I wouldn't be mad about that, because this isn't a movie where you go see it for performances. This is a movie you go see because of the director. You go see it because the director himself is performing and telling you the story. And it's a grueling journey. It's a really hard story. It's a really heavy story, but the way he tells it makes you want to watch it again and again. And it's a rough ride. You are at the edge of your seat. You're feeling like, oh God, these poor men, what's going to happen to them? And it's just, I think it's masterclass directing, maybe not masterclass acting. Maybe the dialogue itself could have been stronger, even though there wasn't a lot of it, because it didn't need a lot of it. But if you're going to have such minimal dialogue, you got to make sure that those words matter. And in that sense, it may not have worked as much, but just from a visual perspective, just everything from the visual, from editing, from sound, everything else just kind of really enhanced this movie. And I just think it's wonderful. My preferred Dunkirk story of this past year.
Well, this fun focuses on Dunkirk.
Yes.
It's all about Dunkirk. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad I wanted to love this movie, Dunkirk. And I'm a big Christopher Nolan fan. Really happy he's finally got nominated here. I have a blind spot though with war movies. And I had a lot of trouble connecting to Dunkirk. I also have a blind spot for movies really without narrative or characterization, which I think is what Dunkirk is. But I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but this movie spends a lot of time with a lot of different characters and I didn't connect with any of them. I also don't, I'd prefer not to see fighting in general, which shouldn't influence opinions, but we all have our preferences for films and I like war fighting. But to be honest, I liked the Mel Gibson war movie from last year more, which is like a stupid opinion, but, that like had an emotional center to it that I really connected with. And, there's like an emotional climax to this movie, but it's not because of the characters themselves. It's more just like what you're experiencing. Mm-hmm. And I love this movie technically and it deserves all the technical nominations. I do wish it had better, narrative and characterization or any amount of that.
Gotcha. That's fair.
Yeah. So I'm fine with it being nominated. We all have things we don't connect with and, it's happy to see the success of Christopher Nolan for sure. So, let's talk, Get Out, the next one. This is the other one you're more likely to have seen. This came out all the way back in February and is a horror movie and is a black racial commentary and it got nominated for Best Picture. What?
It had everything working against it. Came out in February, is genre horror. It's about minorities, everything working against it.
Yeah. Directed by Jordan Peele in his directorial debut, starring Daniel Kaluuya. He was nominated. Both of them were nominated. Wonderful. Beatriz, you said your second favorite movie of the year. What do you love about Get Out?
It's just, there are two films of the past year that I wouldn't change anything of. And Get Out is one of them. Even the things that I think aren't its strongest, it may not be at its strongest, I still think I don't want to change this movie at all. And I adore the ending. I don't know if you saw, but there was an alternate ending that came out with the Blu-ray DVD online release. And that ending would have been so crushing. And I'm so glad that Jordan Peele went with the ending that he went with. And I love how there are these twists and I love the performances. I think it's just this crazy journey. And I'm someone who's not a really big fan of horror. I don't like being scared. And I'm so glad I was brave and decided to watch this movie because the commentary that Jordan Peele adds to the race discussion and to racism and how and just the commentary on just the present conversations about race. It's just, it's how, wow. What I'm about to say next is sarcasm, just in case people don't get it. But what a surprise that someone that's actually impacted by the oppression and actually gets behind the camera and is able to get behind the camera actually has something worth saying, has nuance in the way he says it, and does something incredible and unique and refreshing. And it's just goes to show that if you actually put people who experience that trauma behind the camera, writing it, actually getting them and getting that talent to tell these stories actually brings something to the conversation and doesn't limit the conversation, which is something that often happens with having directors of a specific, directors or writers that are not part of that don't experience that oppression, having them write about it, it shows that there is a limit to what they can do and what they can say, and getting more people with so many different perspectives, getting them behind the camera and getting them to tell these stories is so crucial in keeping film in general, keeping it thriving. And everything about this movie I am so for, and the fact that it is so well done is just great, and I just adore it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. That's like the same thing with Lady Bird for me, is these types of people tell these types of stories. Like, that's what we've been missing. And the fact that Get Out is an Oscar nominee here. Another element. This movie is specifically commenting on how people like the old white guys in the Academy are racist. That's the movie's message, and people still nominate. So that's wonderful. Yeah, I love Get Out. I think that the last third of the movie is like a triumph, and the message behind the movie, what it's all leading towards, is incredible. But that's like the entire movie. I think the performances are all great. The direction's great. I guess what separates this from my top movies is that the first 2/3 aren't as super enthralling. We're building, it's one of those movies where we're building to a point, and the majority is the journey. But I still loved it. I think it's still in my top 10, and really, really, really incredible, important movie. Would absolutely love to see this win Best Picture.
Yes.
And it honestly could. It could. We'll see. But, there's Get Out. I think most people have probably seen it, but if you haven't, definitely watch Get Out. Okay, let's talk about Lady Bird, which is a, coming of age, movie directed by Greta Gerwig about a, girl growing up in Sacramento, played by Saoirse Ronan. I think she's nominated, has a chance. Greta Gerwig's nominated for Best Director. And it's about her, relationship with her mom, played by Laurie Metcalf, who also could win that category, but we'll see. We'll talk about that at the end. Beatriz, what do you think of Lady Bird?
It's interesting. When that first opening of Lady Bird happens, because before I went to see it, my sister told me, you need to see this movie because it reminded me so much of your relationship with mom. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll see it. And, that opening scene, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. But then after that, the relationship between her and her mom, there is an honesty to that. There is something about the mother-daughter relationship that hasn't been, that relationship in itself hasn't been explored as much as it should in film. And having that honesty and truth in that relationship, it was so wonderful to see. I don't have it in my top 10 because even though it's for the people that it resonates with, it resonates, and if you like this, you don't like this movie, you either you love it. It's usually if it touches you, you're going to love it. I take back not liking it because I thought it was okay. There are other movies that also deal with a young woman coming of age and dealing with her thing that I found to be more powerful. One of them is, I believe it came out last year, called Diary of a Teenage Girl. That is also about a young woman coming out. It's much more about her coming out and dealing with her sexuality and where she fits in the world in that sense. But Lady Bird, it's much more it's just these small moments, and you could someone could make the argument that oh, nothing happens in this movie, but it's no, things happen. It's just I could see someone see this and think it's boring. I could see that happen. I didn't find it boring. I think it is very beautiful and subtle. I just not that I don't get the hype, because I do support I do support the director. There is honesty there, but it just didn't 100% work for me because I didn't think it was as original as I hoped it would be. The most impactful moment there were two most impactful moments, but for me, one of the most impactful moments was that opening scene. Was that opening scene for me where I was oh, okay, I get it. And then after that, it just kind of died down a bit for me.
Okay. I've seen this opinion, but this is our biggest disagreement because I love Lady Bird. I have it number 3 overall. I think Lady Bird's a masterpiece. And, number 1, this is the type of movie that does not get told in this capacity, which is a female coming of age story. Like you see a million male coming of age stories, and there's a female coming of age story by a female director. Like it's very personal about her hometown and stuff. I love every part of Lady Bird. I think that it resonates it's like relatable. I think that it's really great characterization of its main character, really realistic portrayal. I think the relationship between Lady Bird and her mother is probably the best relationship I've seen on screen in 2017. I think it was incredibly done. I think both of their performances are wonderful. There's so many scenes. I think there's the beginning scene. There's like a scene in when they're shopping that's getting some play, and some clips at award shows. That's incredible. It's told in a way that I haven't seen media tell this type of thing, where you just like blow up at your parents and yet you still love them. Like that's one of its incredible aspects. And just its like raw portrayal of Lady Bird herself, which is the main character, I think is really incredible. Other thing that stands out to me about this movie when I rewatched it was how tightly like edited it is, which I think is this movie is 90 minutes and it has like 100 plus scenes, and it's just bam, 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 bam to things. And the way it can meaningfully comment and tell a story through like these vignettes that we see of her life was just astounding to me.
Yeah.
So I think it's incredibly made. I think that there's maybe not like one huge moment that emotionally resonates like the end of Call Me by Your Name, a huge emotionally resonant moment. There's maybe not that part in Lady Bird for me. That's the only thing. But other than that, I think it's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, again, most people agree with you rather than with me. I think if I watch it, I feel like it's similar to Call Me by Your Name. This is a movie that I needed to see again. I've only seen it once. And I feel like the first time there's a lot to take in. And then the second time you can really capture those like the smaller details that the first time you watch something, you were too busy looking at everything to like let it sink in for you. So, it's definitely one that I need to look at again. But, at the moment, I'd be happy with the win, because I know how much it means to a lot of people, and I know how much people care about it. And it's one of those movies that the more I think about it, the more I like it. But in terms of just emotional reaction, like gut reaction to it, I thought, I wish I had liked it more, is like what I went out thinking, came out of the movie thinking.
Yeah. Okay, I mean, that's how I feel about Dunkirk, you know.
Yeah.
But
different movies and different, film is subjective, and that's what's great about it.
Yeah. Definitely recommend the rewatch. Also, it's like 90 minutes, super easy rewatch.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Hope Lady Bird, it'd just be incredible to see all those women go up for Lady Bird, like female directed movie.
Yeah.
But Lady Bird is very white, to be fair. It's not like, it's a specific, thing. Like, not other than Get Out. Like, there's not a lot of movies that are perfect in what they're commenting on.
Yeah.
Like Call Me by Your Name, very white. Okay.
Yep.
Anyway, here's another movie that's very white. In fact, I think there are no non-white people in this movie. Phantom Thread. This was a shocking nomination.
Oh, yeah.
No one saw this coming. I think that I had to just go see it because this got no precursor nominations. It just came out very late, so I think it ended up taking a lot of people a long time to see it. But this is the type of movie that gets rewarded by the threshold, 5% first place threshold rule, because there's a few people that really love Phantom Thread. But what did you think? Oh, this is directed
Paul Thomas Anderson, and it stars Daniel Day-Lewis. That's why I wasn't surprised that it was nominated, because these are like Oscar darlings. It's Daniel Day-Lewis in his potentially last film. It's Paul Thomas Anderson. Of course they're going to be nominated.
I would say Paul Thomas Anderson is not as much of an Oscar darling as you would think. He's last two movies have struggled to get nominations, and and Daniel Day-Lewis obviously is, but I don't think the Academy loves PTA that much. So this is a good turnaround, and So Beatriz, what did you think of Phantom Thread?
I went to an early screening of this movie that I managed to get into, and I brought my sister along with me. And my sister fell asleep halfway through, and there were like, people were laughing, and me and her would constantly turn to each other and be like, why are they laughing? Why are they laughing?
Phantom Thread has some funny moments.
Not to say that it's funny. It does have funny moments, but I just thought, like, it wasn't humor that worked for me. And I don't know. This is a movie that, again, the more I think about it, the more I can not that the more that I like it, but the more I can understand what they were trying to say, what they were trying to do. But it is a movie that I don't want to watch again. I didn't find to be it didn't resonate much with me. I didn't enjoy it. As I let it sink in, I was like, oh, this is what was going on. These are the themes that they're dealing with, and this is what commentary I'm taking out of this movie, and blah blah blah. Like, I could write a piece on this film, but I wouldn't enjoy writing the piece on it because I just don't have any real emotion when it comes to this film. I felt nothing watching it. I was just like, really? This is your last performance, Daniel Day-Lewis? Really? Okay. All right. Again, like a lot of people have said very positive things about it. I just personally didn't connect to it. It's one of the movies that I could have easily swapped it out and put another film in.
Okay, so you're saying has interesting things to say, but not told in an interesting way?
Or rather, not told in a way that I find interesting. Okay. Not that it's not told in an interesting way, but like there are a lot of moments in this film that are GIF-worthy. Like I'd want to have GIFs of them, but I wouldn't necessarily want to watch this movie again.
Okay, I probably agree with that. I literally just saw it, so I haven't fully processed yet. But I did love Phantom Thread. I think I was engrossed watching it. I agree with you that like your opinion of this movie is going to come down to whether you like the process of where we arrive. Like where we arrive is clearly interesting, but did you enjoy getting there? And it took me a little bit. I think like the first hour of the movie is a little boring. But I was, once we got past that, I was really engrossed by what was happening. It was it's like, what is any of this? Like, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. It's so weird. And the acting's so incredible, the direction's so incredible, but ultimately I really did love it. I really don't want to say anything about what the movie's about because you should just see it blind, I would say.
Yeah.
Like it's a movie whose intentions are intentionally disguised. But on the surface, it's like about dressmaking, and it's about a dressmaker in 1950s London. But I think that like it's not so much that it has like incredibly unique things to say about human behavior at the end. It just tells it in such an interesting way. Like I really love how we arrived there, and there's a few scenes in the second half that I was just floored by. So that's really all I'm looking for in any movie, is just to be super emotionally resonant or floored by a scene or multiple scenes like that. I can take parts that I'm not into if I get that, and I definitely got them from Phantom Thread. Super weird, super interesting movie. But it's going to be polarizing. I'd say probably most like average film goers wouldn't like it, but I don't really know. You know,
yeah.
It's a tough one, but yeah, I don't want to sit on that for a while, but I'm completely fine with an Oscar nomination there. Like that's, you know, this is like a daring, I don't think this is an Oscar bait movie, although Daniel Day-Lewis, it's like this is a weird daring movie, I guess. Although it's like a period piece. It's interesting. It's a lot of it's a subversion, so it's hard to say what it is and isn't. Okay, let's talk The Post, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Meryl Streep, Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep nominated, Tom Hanks not nominated. Beatriz, what do you think of The Post?
I think, look, as a journalist, this film had so many moments of just me fist pumping, because it's kind of similar to, I think Spotlight is a better film than this one, but it had a similar emotion. I had a similar thing of like, yeah, journalism, just as a journalist. But, I will say that this film is heavy-handed. It does not shy away from really telling you what the message is. And there are scenes in this movie that really are like, hit you over the head of what the moment means. Like, look how important this moment is. It's a well-made film. The performances are great. I think this performance by Meryl Streep, I think, is really phenomenal. I think it's one of her stronger ones in recent years. But it's so heavy-handed. There's just this film does not know subtlety. And, I love the end. And people have said that the second this movie ends and you start All the President's Men, it's like a perfect continuation. And it's like, it's a perfect way to lead into All the President's Men. And it's crazy if you think about the fact that Meryl Streep's character, the person that she plays, doesn't even appear in All the President's Men, which just really shows you how there's this erasure of women. In history and storytelling, that women get erased if men don't include women in their stories and women don't get the power to tell their own stories, they get erased. And this movie really emphasizes that. And it's a great film. It's just not the subtlest of films. And just to say, like, Phantom Thread, I don't blame it for being nominated. I think objectively, I can see good in it. And the people I saw it with are really digging it. But these two movies, I would say, are not the strongest in the bunch of all these films. But I understand why they would get nominated, because they are well-made films. It's just, personally, The Post, for instance, is just a little bit too heavy-handed.
Yeah, I'd lump The Post in with Darkest Hour and didn't need to be nominated. And Phantom Thread, I think, is a great nomination. The Post, I take issue with The Post being a great movie, although I think it's a very good movie. Like, I think that's what separates this from the rest of a lot of these really resonant, great movies, is that, like, The Post is fine. Like, it's doing what it does well. One of the biggest things, and I hinted at it earlier, was it's doing way too many things. Yeah. And the best thing that it's doing is telling the story of Meryl Streep's character, which I think it does incredibly well. And I agree, this is a great performance by Meryl Streep. A lot of people are like, oh, another Meryl Streep nomination. This one was actually great. Like, this is like, and it's telling the story of a really important woman in history. And I think her characterization was incredible. Like, if the whole movie was about that, maybe this would be a great movie. But, we spend a lot of time doing other things which are not bad. I mean, Steven Spielberg can't do anything bad. It's fine. But, it's just not that, it's just not as interesting and not as, resonant. So I think The Post is fine. But and it is very heavy-handed. Also, I hate the first scene of the movie. I hate it. We just start in Vietnam for no reason. Yeah. I don't need to see that. I just despise that. But telling Meryl Streep's story was wonderful. So it's fine. It's not the end of the world that this got nominated.
And also there's this trend with these films where there's always this monologue that a specific character, not necessarily the main character, will have. For Call Me By Your Name, there was a specific monologue that was so incredible. In The Post, there is a monologue by a character that appears very briefly in the entire film. She doesn't talk much, but when she has that speech, you're just like, oh man, what a great speech. And something interesting about 2017 had a lot of great monologues.
Yeah. It's a good speech. It was just shocking that character was talking so much, considering they don't do anything else in the entire movie. Yeah. The movie has too many characters. Yeah. But you'll see a lot of actors you recognize, so that's fun. I actually didn't, think the Trump commentary was great. Like, I liked it, like, personally, but I didn't think it was great. Well done. Is that a hot take?
No, I don't think it's a hot take. I think a lot of people came out feeling that way. In that it was, I mean, I feel like if this movie had come out any other, 5 years ago, people would have been like, what? Like, this movie wouldn't have existed 5 years ago.
I think the Trump commentary distracts from
the
Meryl
story.
Streep's characterization. Yeah. Like, I think the last scene is kind of, I don't know. I don't need it. Okay. But that's the whole reason the movie exists, so whatever. Okay, let's talk The Shape of Water. Which is the latest film from Guillermo del Toro, starring Sally Hawkins as a mute like cleaning lady in a government facility in Baltimore, and it's a love story between her and a fish monster.
Yes.
And it's maybe the best picture favorite, which is awesome. Like, no, this movie is not Oscar bait. It's a love story between a fish, like a monster fish, and a woman. Like, Anyway, Beatriz, what do you think of The Shape of Water?
I love this movie, and I'm not gonna go into detail, but there is a scene. There is a scene in like the third act of the film. There's a scene that if you take it out of context and you just put it out there, people would be like, what is this? Like, it makes no sense. What is going on? What is happening? And But because Guillermo del Toro is so confident in the way he's telling the story, he knows that by that point, he knows that he can throw anything on screen and the audience would dig it. The audience would be there because he has them. He has them and he's just like, I have complete control and I'm going to go as crazy and as wild as I want to be with my imagination, and it's fantastic. And it's a wonderful film about the oppressed. And something I really do like about it is that a lot of times with love stories, something's happened with Call Me By Your Name, and that it's so obsessed with the two lovebirds. It's so obsessed with the two people in love that everybody else kind of fades away. And if it's done well, most people won't care because the love story is so enthralling. But with this film, the love story isn't as enthralling as Call Me By Your Name. I think if anything, there are certain scenes in it that I was like, ooh, I don't understand how this jumped from here to here. I would have changed this a little bit. But it had such a great supporting cast, and they were so strong, and the love story was strong as well, and Sally Hawkins is amazing in this role without saying a word, and she does so much. And Del Toro just does something crazy with this movie, and it's not just about a monster and a lady falling in love. It's also about the oppressed. It's also about old Hollywood and the love of film, and it's this wonderful, weird mix of things, and it works, and it's a miracle that it works, and I adore it. And it wasn't made for a lot. It did not have a huge budget. So it's definitely a feat, I think. And it's just I would not be mad if it took Best Picture. And I'm not mad that he's going to win Director because I think it deserves it.
Yeah, made for $20 million and looks probably the best looking film of the year.
Yeah.
which is incredible. I also love Shape of Water, and I'm thrilled that it's being this well received. In a year when Lady Bird and Get Out exist, this almost is like the non-progressive choice, but this movie's totally progressive and stars a mute woman, and it's wonderful throughout. I think that the final scene of the movie absolutely floored me. And one of my favorite scenes of the year, and that's really what I'm looking for, a huge emotional scene to connect with, and I absolutely love the final scene. And the rest of the movie is also very, very good. I think Sally Hawkins' performance is incredible. Richard Jenkins is incredible in this movie. Michael Shannon, Octavia Spencer. It's really incredibly well made. I'm very happy for Guillermo del Toro, especially, as he's a animation supporter. He has an animated series out, and he's like a big Gravity Falls fan. It's great. I'm glad he's going to win Best Director. This is really an incredible film. I guess it's the type of movie a lot of the general populace sees, win, and doesn't connect with, but, that's a shame because I think that it's incredible and great commentary on oppression and stuff like that. Yeah.
I will say that I really hope that Octavia Spencer stops being pigeonholed into a specific type of character. I remember when watching the movie, I was just thinking, wouldn't it have been crazy if Octavia Spencer was the silent princess? Like, wouldn't have that been so cool to see? Because we know she's a great actress. So that's something that did that little detractor was just that even though she's great, it's just another reminder that people are only giving her certain specific roles, and I want more of her doing a variety of things.
Yeah, that character's kind of typical. I'm surprised that she's getting that much awards recognition because there's not a lot there in that role, I would say. But they do explore they explore her more than a typical movie.
Yeah.
Would. So I think that's at least good. Shape of Water, definitely highly recommend seeing. And lastly, the main event here, three billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. It is hard to describe this, a black comedy directed by Martin McDonough, starring Frances McDormand, about Missouri town and her her trying to get the police to solve her daughter's murder. And very much a black comedy, very much it's kind of like a play. He's like a playwright. Beatriz, what do you think of Three Billboards?
I don't get it. I don't get why it's getting so much recognition. I don't understand. I watched it and then just thought, this is it? This is what everyone's like freaking out about? Really? Like, I found it to be problematic. I found the story itself, I found it to borderline melodramatic. I thought it was a soap opera at one point. And I understand Frances McDormand's performance. I can get, like, there are moments in this film that she completely owns, but everything else about it, I was just thinking if you who are an American are going to write a film about American culture, I want you to do your homework and actually do some nuanced writing, not just pretend to include things in there so it could be authentic. It's like, dude, if you're going to write about a racist cop, I want him to deal with racism if you're going to redeem him. Like, you can't just do that. You can't just throw it in there and then just like, no, that's not how this works. And I'm not saying that a director who isn't American can't direct a movie about America, because Okja exists, and Okja is a wonderful film directed by a Korean director, and it's wonderful, and it comments on American capitalism, and it's so nuanced and so great. This movie is not that. This movie is just very uncomfortable to watch, and just the way it just refuses to actually deal with things, and I wanted more Frances McDormand. Like, if you combine Sam Rockwell's story and Woody Harrelson's story, they're essentially, they make up half the film, whereas Frances McDormand makes up the other half. I wanted Frances McDormand to make up 3/4 of the movie and everybody else to have a quarter. So, I really don't understand, outside of Frances McDormand's nominations, I really don't understand how it's nominated for anything else. Like, this is the one that I really cannot say, like, oh yes, this is a great film. Like, objective, it has moments of greatness, and I think that's mostly due to Frances McDormand's performance. Everything else about it, I'm like, no, I gotta turn my brain off for this, because it's silly.
Okay, yeah. I want to circle back to the problematic stuff after, but it's interesting. There's definitely a lot of people who have your reaction. I read a similar opinion in the New York Times by Wesley Morris. Does the Three Billboards say anything about America? Well, and he basically says that the movie just doesn't end up saying anything at all, and it just doesn't come together well. I'm definitely rooting against this movie in the Best Picture category because I do find it problematic, which we'll circle back to. I'll make that clear. But I did really like Three Billboards. I do think it's a great movie, and it is in my top 10. But certainly there's elements that ends up not working. But I guess taking on the supporter of the movie role, even though I love half of the movies in this category better than Three Billboards. I think the movie is very smart, very like witty. It has like great dialogue. It has a lot to say. None of it comes together that well. It is like really interesting characters. It has a powerful female lead performance with Frances McDormand. She's incredible. That role is really great. There's a lot of great supporting characters. There's always interesting things going on. It's commenting about like this tough subject. Like, her daughter was like murdered, and she's dealing with it. It's like about grief and dealing with grief. And I think like all the white Oscar voters really love grief movies, because that was the same thing with Manchester by the Sea. Yeah. But I like this movie a lot better than Manchester, to be honest.
Oh yeah, this is better than Manchester by the Sea. Manchester by the Sea is like a depression in a movie.
Okay, interesting. People love Manchester. But I think this movie's really good. Look, it's Sam Rockwell's character goes on a unearned journey. That performance is incredible, I think. I think Sam Rockwell is really great. I think the character is pretty interesting. Like, the movie I agree that the movie's not as clever as it thinks it is. Like, at the end, it's trying to comment on like moving on and stuff, and it's kind of successful. But I did enjoy it. I think something that influences is I saw this at the end of November. I saw this before this became the front runner, before there's all this commentary about it. So I feel like maybe expectations played a role, but I think this is a good movie. I get it. I definitely get it. This is also, I want to say, this is not the type of movie that wins Best Picture. So this is like it's very white and stuff, but it's not, it's like a very, very much like a black comedy that's like a play is not the type of movie that typically wins. So it's really interesting that this is resonating with people. I agree. That was unexpected for me that this becomes the front runner. I don't think it's going to win. So that's that is that going. But let's circle back to problematic, because that's where most of the backlash is coming from against this movie, is that it's socially problematic. What specifically do you find problematic about this movie?
I just don't understand why they use racism and the Black Lives Matter thing, like police brutality, as simply a device as a background information for a character. And if that's the reason he's a bad character, if you're going to redeem him, he needs to face the badness. Like, we can't be sympathetic to him. Like, I'm not saying you can't redeem someone like that. I'm saying if you're gonna redeem him, it has to be earned. It has to be earned, and he didn't earn it, because he's still violent, he's still racist, and I'm like, dude, I can't get behind you. The way this movie tries to be sympathetic towards him, and I'm like, why should I be sympathetic towards him? He hasn't shown me that he's worth any sympathy. And it's just really frustrating. And same with Woody Harrelson's character, where I'm like, dude, just because you got cancer does not make it okay for you to be okay with Sam Rockwell's character. It all ties back, where it's like these people refuse to actually deal with the weaknesses they have, and refuse to actually be efficient in what they do, simply because this movie refuses to want to comment on anything. And it's like there is a story worth telling in here. There is a great drama in here. It just doesn't do anything. It just doesn't bring any sort of comments, nuance, anything, because it just uses racism as this given and doesn't even explore it. It's like if they had just made him a bad cop who's violent, not even brought in the whole racially charged things, then maybe I wouldn't care so much. But it's like, if you're not going to talk about it, then don't mention it, is what I say. Like, I would have rather them not mentioned it, and it's like, and the criticism be like, oh, why didn't you mention it? I would have rather had that criticism, like, in my conscience, than be like, oh, I'm going to mention it just to use it as a tool for drama and tension, but never actually explore it. And I just couldn't, it's to that point where we are as a society, I'm just done. If it's a serious problem, it's a serious problem. And if people aren't going to take it seriously, and if people are just going to use it for drama, sorry, you don't deserve to talk about it. You don't deserve to tell the story, because you're not willing to actually engage with the subject matter. And that's my position.
Well, yeah. I think a lot of people feel the same way. I think you hit on the two main points that I'm seeing in terms of it being problematic. One is that the Sam Rockwell character is a racist cop who gets redemption, and he doesn't really address, he's still racist at the end. So, yeah. But he gets redemption anyway. And two is that it's not really showing, it's not commenting on race. I really agree with you that it doesn't show racism. It just uses it as a backdrop thing. The thing that really annoys me is the lack of black main characters in a story that's about racism. That's hard to swallow. That it's just about white people dealing with racism, but it's not there are black people in the movie, but they have not a lot. They don't get any.
They're in the periphery. Periphery.
That's not a good idea.
And there's a character that literally gets thrown in jail, and the next time we see her, she's smiling. And it's like, what? Like, what? No, that's not how this works.
Yeah, not good. It's you can tell this is a white person telling the story. And, I listened to, Martin McDonough on, the Playback podcast with, Christopher Tapley to hear his perspective on this. And, Christopher asked about the backlash, which I thought was interesting. And Martin says, here's everything he says. He says, Sam Rockwell's character was not redeemed. The story isn't about heroes and villains. Which I think that's clearly he's going to say something like that. And here's a direct quote. The idea that for human beings there's hope in a story like this, even for characters as despicable as Sam's, I thought that was an interesting idea to explore.
So he is trying to redeem him then, because he's trying to show there's hope for him.
I think he would argue that hope is not the same thing as redeeming him.
But it makes him sympathetic.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
I props to Martin for not shying away from saying his position on this. I think that last quote is exactly what I expected him to say, and I don't agree that that's a theme worth exploring. Despicable people, there's hope for them. is not an important story to tell. And this is something this is a type of story that white people really love telling. And, it's not important given that we have marginalized people's stories to tell. Like, though, that's the those stories are important. Until we're inundated with stories about, marginalized people, then maybe we can get into, okay, like, yes, everyone agrees racists are people too. Like, yes, like, we get that. It's not like everyone's condemning them it's not like we're killing them off. Like,
I mean, one of them's our president. Like, we get it.
We know that they have humanity. We don't need a whole movie about that. Like, there's so many stories about that. And, it's really not an important thing to get into. And if you are going to get into it, it needs to be done in a more nuanced way than this movie handles it. So, you know, it's not like this is, I do think this movie is trying to be progressive, and, I think there are progressive themes in there. Like, it is like racism is bad, and it's like the whole movie's about that.
Well done.
Yeah, good job commenting on that. But it's really just what he says with like, exploring hope for despicable characters. Like, the movie gets too caught up in that, basically, and it takes away from the other brilliant parts of it, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, there are some scenes in there that are incredible. There are some scenes, like there's a scene with Frances McDormand where she I won't get into specifics, but someone visits her and she just tears them a new one, and it's fantastic. And if there were more scenes like that in there, then maybe, but no, this film is filled with moments and then this very dark cloud over it. And it's just, it's frustrating. There was something in there and it just didn't land.
Yeah. Well, it is landing for a lot of people.
For a lot of people. Clearly, in my opinion, is the most important, Dylan. I mean, come on.
Well, no, you are not alone in this opinion. There's like this movie isn't even good, and then there's also like this movie is problematic, and you know, there's supporters for a lot of that. I think this backlash will be enough to make it not win, but we will see. There you go. Those are our thoughts on all of the movies. Let's briefly hit on the other major categories. Actor, not a best actor, not a particularly strong best actor year, to be honest. Yeah. Best actress is a really strong year, but, Gary Oldman is heavily favored to win, as we talked about Darkest Hour. The only other person who could win in this category is, Timothée Chalamet. I'm really rooting for, okay, I'm gonna say up front, I am heavily rooting against every front runner this year in acting, so, it's unfortunate, but, I think Gary Oldman's performance is great. I think Timothy's is better, honestly. Yeah. So, like, I would give it to him on that basis. Also, I think Gary Oldman's like a problematic human being. So there's that factor. But, you know, don't give a career award to Gary Oldman, you know.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I'm just unenthusiastic about him winning that.
Yeah. I mean, again, he's not the best Churchill I've seen on screen. If he's gonna get best actor, I wanted him to be the best Churchill on screen. Not to say that his performance was bad. It wasn't a bad performance. It wasn't. It was a great performance. But I need if Darkest Hour was a movie that you had to watch only for his performance, it wasn't worth it. Like, I didn't need to see his performance. It was a great performance, but it wasn't enough to make the movie stellar and spectacular. Like, certain performances in certain other movies were like, that was worth it. The movie may not have been perfect, but because of that sole performance, it was worth watching. That doesn't happen with The Darkest Hour for me with Gary Oldman. If you want to see Churchill, just watch John Lithgow on The Crown. I can't say enough that he's great in it. But yeah, Timmy, I want Timmy to win. He does more. That film there's so much more in that. Like, he is the strongest thing in that film. He is the film. This film could not have worked without Timothée Chalamet. And he, like, in terms of importance, you could think of various people who could play Churchill. In my mind, there's no other kid who could have played Elio. He deserves it.
Yeah. I agree. I do think Darkest Hour is worth it for the lead performance. It crosses the threshold for me. It doesn't cross by a lot, but, I think that's good enough. But, you know, it's like, I don't know. Timothy is, you know, more of an exciting young person and has a better performance, so that combines to me rooting heavily for him. But Gary Oldman will win that category.
Yeah.
Best actress, I think this might be the strongest best actress year ever.
Yeah, I mean, I think I might know who is going to win, but I'm not.
You have Frances McDormand, Saoirse Ronan, and Sally Hawkins all in potentially the top 3 vote getters of the year. All lead female performances, female main characters in those movies. Those are the 3 that could win. You also have Meryl Streep in The Post, who we think is incredible. We talked about that. Margot Robbie and I, Tonya. She's great in that movie. And there's a lot that missed. I think probably 6th here was Jessica Chastain for Molly's Game. Yeah. She was absolutely incredible in that movie. There could have been 10 slots here. I just saw Phantom Thread and, Vicky Krieps.
She was good. She was really good.
I think she's the main character of that movie.
Oh, totally. She's totally the main character.
She's incredible there. She was the only of the 3 lead performances that didn't get nominated. I get it because this category is so strong, but I would have loved to see her nominated too. Frances McDormand is the favorite here. But she's won every precursor. She's not as much of a favorite as you'd think. Saoirse Ronan could win.
I want Saoirse to win. Even though, honest, if I picked, I would pick Sally Hawkins. But if Saoirse Ronan won, I wouldn't mind. I'd be like, that's okay. I'm happy for her. I'd be like, you go, Saoirse, you go. But with Frances, because of everything in that movie, I just don't want to support the movie at all. So I personally don't need and Frances McDormand already has an Oscar. And so I don't need her to get another one. Saoirse, you go ahead and take your Oscar. Or Sally, please take it. Please give it to Sally. Please. She hasn't, even if whoever wins, it cannot be stated enough that she has not been getting as much recognition as she should be for her performance in The Shape of Water. The Shape of Water, the movie, has been getting recognition, but her performance in it has not been getting enough. And she definitely deserves it.
I agree with that. She is nominated for Best Actress, but I agree with that. Yes. She hasn't won enough things. There's one incredibly powerhouse scene where she's signing to Richard Jenkins in the hallway. She's so stunning in that scene. Oh my god. I'd love Sally Hawkins to win. I'm really rooting for Saoirse Ronan. I think she's absolutely incredible performance in Lady Bird. That's my performance of the year. Her and Timothy. Frances' performance is great. I agree the movie's a little bit tainted because of that, but I don't know. It's tough to be locked out of every category from the most exciting choice. And as you said, Saoirse's 3rd nomination. She is very young though. She'll have a lot of chances.
Yeah. But. And she's been, since Atonement, Saoirse has been working. So I'm not worried about Saoirse's career. If anything, she's had a more successful career than so many actresses have in their 30s. So she's fine.
Yeah, it's not the same thing as Gary Oldman where this would be a career Oscar for Frances. She's won before. Saoirse's the one this is her 3rd nomination and hasn't won, but she's also extremely young, so.
3rd nomination! It's crazy!
Yeah. I do think she's even better in this movie than Brooklyn.
Hands down.
No, I mean, I love Brooklyn. I love her in that movie, but she's so good in Lady Bird. Anyway, all of these really strong performances. Actor in a supporting role. The favorite here is Sam Rockwell for 3 Billboards in that problematic role that we talked about. For most of the precursor process, Willem Dafoe for Florida Project was favored. He'd won more critical awards, but Sam Rockwell's won a lot of these precursors. Also, Woody Harrelson, Richard Jenkins, and Christopher Plummer. That's my least favorite nomination of the year, Christopher Plummer for All the Money in the World. Stupid, 10 days of shooting. They did it just because of that. I don't think they're really commenting on the performance. Who are you rooting for here?
This is a really tough category because I want William Dafoe to win because it's the only award that the Florida Project may have slightly a chance of winning. But Richard Jenkins was incredible in The Shape of Water as well. So it's a hard one. But
Richard Jenkins isn't winning, so you can put all your support to
I want William Dafoe to win so badly.
Heavily rooting for Willem Dafoe here. He's really good in Florida Project. I also think the 2 lead female performances were incredible and should have been nominated too, including 7-Year-Old Girl.
Prince,
but Willem Dafoe is really great there, and rooting for him to be that role. The role is really problematic, but Sam Rockwell is really good in that movie, and also he's just an incredible actor.
I would he is in supporting, though. I would put him as lead along with Frances
I agree with that. It's unfair to compare him to these other performances.
Like William Dafoe is a solid supporting character. Yeah. That is the best supporting character. The fact that Sam Rockwell is in supporting makes no sense.
Yeah. The bigger problems with this supporting versus main designation. We've had this a lot.
Yeah.
But he is more to chew on there. Actress in a supporting role. Allison Janney has moved into the favorite spot for I, Tonya.
Yeah.
But this is the closest of these categories because Laurie Metcalf for Lady Bird could also win. Mary J. Blige, Octavia Spencer, and Leslie Manville surprise nomination for Phantom Thread also nominated. Who do you like here?
I mean, this is hard. It's really hard because Allison Janney was so funny in I, Tonya. Like, the moments with her character are just some of the best. Like, she's a great supporting character in this. Like, I adored her performance. But, you know, I don't know. It's Lady Bird's mom. You can't not give it to her because she was incredible in this too. And then Mary J. Blige. Can we talk about Mary J. Blige's performance? Because it is, again, it's a character that doesn't say a lot. But when she speaks, it matters. And she's so powerful in this performance. And just, she's not 100% expressive. But, you know, I was in a similar situation. I was like, okay, the mom in Lady Bird or the mother in Mudbound. And it's just like, it's two different situations. You have this character who's carrying the weight of her family on her shoulders. She is the matriarch. And you have this character who shows the honest depictions of a mother-daughter relationship in the present that doesn't have so much weight on her shoulders. It's much more micro than it is macro, but at the same time, it's still really great. So it's so hard to compare. These characters are so different. It's so hard to compare them. Oh man, I don't know.
Okay, that's good. By the way, for Mudbound, Mary J. Blige was great. Also, one of not talked about at all. Her son for either supporting or like that's the standout performance of the movie to me. Anyway, this category is the most upsetting to me because, here's the thing. I love Allison Janney, big West Wing fan, I've loved her since West Wing. She's great. And I think that's why she's winning is everyone loves her. And I agree with that. But to me, and granted, I don't really like I, Tonya, so that's biasing me, but, Laurie Metcalf is by far the standout supporting performance. And I don't understand how she's not winning. Allison Janney, it's a small role and, she does what she can with it, but Laurie Metcalf is everything in that movie. And, I don't get this one. She's more important. She's definitely more, like, she does so much more for that movie than Allison Janney does for I, Tonya. She's really, really good. Really rooting for her. And this is the closest, I guess, of the four. So, and then director, we think Guillermo del Toro's winning. That seems pretty locked in. I
don't know why, but on his Twitter, I feel like he knows too, because he keeps going like, "Thank you so much for this." Like for the nomination, he's like giving a little speech as if it's like preparation for the actual award, and he's so excited. I'm so happy for him. Like I love it, but it's very really exciting. Funny.
Yeah. Animated movie, Coco's winning. So maybe we'll have a second podcast on that, but it's winning. Okay, Beatriz. Final Oscar thoughts here.
Well, really, it's the more I actually religiously follow the award season and make an effort, especially these past couple years, I've really made an effort to watch all these movies. The more I realize that my opinion is so superior to the Oscars. Because I'm right. The films I love are the best films, and the Oscars doesn't always get them right. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not, but yes. And it's really funny because when I went for my undergrad, I went to USC, which is really famous for its film school. And there was this class where I had it with some film students. And I remember during the Oscars, season, I remember asking this one girl, I was like, "So who do you think is going to win for the Oscars?" And then she just turns to me. She gives me this look and goes, "The Oscars don't matter." And I was just like, okay. I was like, all right, that's a hot take right there. And it's just kind of like, it's a reminder that yes, the films that are nominated for these awards, they are special. But there are just as many special films that don't get nominated and don't get recognition, and we need to find a way to get those films also known in the culture that is, in the dialogue that is our culture. We need to also make sure that those films don't get forgotten because there's so many. But yeah.
That's the value to me of the Oscars, is talking about the best movies of the year. Like, whatever, it's an award show, I get it, but for the most part, the Oscars are pretty good at nominating a lot of the best movies of the year, and it gets them talked about, and we watch them. That's the value.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part this year, they got a lot of things right. Missing the Florida Project, really inexcusable. But other than that, and Mudbound, these are really good movies. I make a effort to watch all the Oscar nominees every year, and I think it's worthwhile because if you force yourself to watch all the Best Picture nominations, you're watching a lot of the best films of the year. You get to see a lot of great media, and I'd recommend this for other people as well. There you go. Let us know which films you agreed with, what you didn't agree with our opinions on. And also let us know what you think of this as an off-topic podcast, because very different from our normal podcasts. And we'd love to know what you'd like to see more of us discuss off-topic from animation, and any potential suggestions as well. Find all that at overlyanimated.com. Search for Overly Animated on iTunes. Subscribe there if you want to check out our typical animation content. Consider supporting us via Patreon, patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thank you very much to all of our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Alex, aka Esteban Universidad. I wonder if Alex will listen to the end of this podcast. We'll see. If he comments, then we know he made it. And thanks as always to patron executive producers John, Ryan, Steve, Alex, Andy, and Hugh. Thank you, Beatriz. This was a lot of fun. You did a great job. We made it through an hour and a half giant movie podcast. Let's see if people even listen to this or like it. But thank you guys. If you listen to the end, comment, tell us. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.